Hey everyone, it's Kong again, and here's another episode of Should You Summon. These recurring banners have cycled through enough times now that we know the drill. I'll be using my abridged format for characters that have already been in the game for a while, hitting the major immediate reasons you might want to summon them. My traditional criteria will still underpin these reasons, but I might not necessarily break every character up that way. So this week we've got a classic recurring Destiny banner featuring Elwin, Leon, and Bernhardt, running from April 29th to May 12th. As a Destiny banner, the first SSR that shows up for you is guaranteed to be one of these three that you don't already have. After that first SSR pull, you have the usual 20% chance to get an off-banner hero. So we're just going to get started with Elwin, who's a self-sustaining DPS. His talent boosts his damage and heals him. His unique sword has a built-in clock-like effect. He's one of the few characters that doesn't have a 3C skill in the game yet, but he does have an SP class. The SP talent gives him a damage and defense boost, a once per battle revive, and pre-combat healing based on how many tiles he moves. He's a member of Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal, Legion of Glory, buffed by Ledin, Elwin, and Grenier, and Protagonists, buffed by Matthew. His buff for Legion of Glory boosts damage by 15% if you have more than 80% hit points. He unlocks the attack bonds for Lana, Ledin, Leon, and Liana, and the defensive bond for Hein. He needs Hein for his own defensive bond and Liana for his attack bond. In PvE, he's useful for Phoenix, Scylla, and Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple. In Ancient Beckoning, he's usable against Sleipnir and technically on faction for Hugin and Munin, although not necessarily very useful there. He can solo the Thunder Dragon because of his ability to clear buffs with Roar and Sword Soul and heal himself indefinitely. With his SP class and the impending rise of Empire's Honor, Elwin continues to be a PvP threat. His ability to bring a Legion of Glory faction buff also gives you some more flexibility for buffing other good meta units like Tiny Jessica, Mariel, Yulia, and so on. Next we'll move on to Leon. Leon is a highly mobile cavalry DPS unit. He can extend his range with Chivalry and retreat after attacking. He has a 3-cost single target attack with a disruptive AoE scramble that's not affected by Hilda's immunity, and a piece of unique armor that lets him ignore terrain penalties for a turn after taking damage. He's a member of Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal, and Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford. His faction buff for Empire's Honor increases damage by 5% for each tile moved before combat up to a maximum of 15%. He unlocks the defensive bonds for Bernhardt and Lana, and the attack bonds for Werner, Laird, and Roga. He needs Laird for his defensive bond and Elwin for his attack bond. He's useful for pretty much any general run-of-the-mill content, so story, time rifts, joint battles, challenges, and so on. He's great against Phoenix and Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple, and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. In PvP, he can still be a good DPS option, but his problem is that he can't reliably bust tanks or ignore guard. His 3C can be used to finish off both of SP Elwin's lives, or scramble the enemy team so your other units can pick someone off. Finally, Bernhardt is kind of a general-purpose character. His talent aura reduces nearby enemies' attack and defense by up to 15%, no questions asked. This is an amazing talent that scales up nicely with higher-end content. He also has a unique armor that extends his talent span by 1, which opens up a lot of positioning options. After his 3-cost skill, coming to global servers in early June, he has a few potential uses. He can be a good single-target buff remover with double hegemony and Mjolnir. He can do huge AoE sword dances, and he can be a bulky, tanky bruiser as well. He's a member of Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal, Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Mythical Realm, buffed by Gizaroth and the Sage of the Trees. So in a continuing theme on this banner, Bernhardt also carries his own faction buff for Empire's Honor, which grants plus 20% damage if you have class advantage. Actually, Bern has 2 faction buffs. His improved 3C faction buff gives plus 18% damage when entering battle with no class advantage condition. It also has some selfish bonus effects just for burn. He gets +1 mobility, plus 15% damage dealt, +1 span on his sword dance AoE, +1 shield bash range, allowing for ranged stuns, and gives 25% damage reduction if you're using his Iron Fist tanking skill. It also has Hegemony built in, which can stack with the normal 2-cost version of the skill. He unlocks the attack bonds for Imelda and Vargas, and he needs Leon for his defensive bond and Bozel for his attack bond. In PvE, he's great for Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple, and he's a top tier pick for both Fenrir and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning, thanks to that OP talent aura. The combination of his talent and the innate debuffing and buff stripping in his Hegemony skill of course makes him excellent against the Thunder Dragon. On the PvP side, Bernie's back. His 3C skill coincides with a number of other improvements to Empire's Honor as a whole, to make him a nice linchpin in a certain kind of Apex Arena box. We've got Ares, Hilda, Florentia, who loves getting faction buffed, just loves it. We've got Helena's unique gear coming up, which makes her a solid pick as well. SP Elwin, Ultimuller's SP form is coming up and can be a nice complement to Burn. Clotaire and Werner are around, and we even have 3C improvements to Egbert and Emmerich, so if you love Empire, you have some legitimate options now. For availability for all 3 of these characters, their next appearance on the schedule is on the repeat of this banner, coming in late September. So here's the quick and dirty summary. We have Elwin, who's a self-sustaining DPS with a powerful SP class. He carries a faction buff for Legion of Glory, and he unlocks the defensive bond for Hein and the attack bonds for Lana, Ledin, Leon, and Liana. We have Leon, who's a heavy-hitting, high-mobility DPS. He carries a faction buff for Empire's Honor, and he unlocks the defensive bonds for Bernhardt and Lana, and the attack bonds for Werner, Laird, and Roga. Finally, we have Bernhardt, who's a versatile unit with an excellent debuffing aura. He carries faction buffs for Empire's Honor, and he unlocks the attack bonds for Imelda and Vargas. Even though it's not a new banner, this is still one of my highly recommended summons, especially for newer players. All 3 are great all-round heroes, and Elwin's SP class and Bernhardt's upcoming 3C skill are nice improvements. If you're missing any of these characters, it definitely doesn't hurt to sink a few summons into this one, with one caveat, and that's my usual reminder about upcoming banners. Next week, this banner will overlap with the launch of the 2 new characters, Kruger and Vincent. Kruger especially is going to be a nasty addition to the Dark Myth debuff arsenal, which just keeps getting nastier with Bozel's upcoming 3C on the horizon. I'll have more details about that in the upcoming issue of the Langrisser Lookout, so stay tuned. The week after Kruger's launch, when this banner goes away, we should be getting a Little Empire dessert banner featuring Florentia and Betty. Florentia has turned out to be one of the best healers in the game, and she's going to have a ready source of faction buffs now with Hilda and Bernhardt out there, so she could be worth risking the Betty if you don't have her already. Alright, that's it for this episode. I hope you found this video and these summaries helpful. Let me know in the comments if you plan on summoning on this banner, and if you did, what kind of luck you had. Personally, I have all 3 of these characters already, but as you know, both Leon and Bernhardt are waiting patiently at 100 out of 150 shards towards 6 star. I didn't want to rush them in case they wanted to show up as off-banner surprises, like Bernhardt has done multiple times. But I can also toss a few summons at this one and trade Elwin for Bern if I get him, so it would be perfect timing for me, so fingers crossed. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, to our Langrisser tier channel members Levitt, Derek Gunderson, and Kyle Greer-Brown, as well as all of our gold tier members for your generous support. Thanks so much.